just off out for a drive, and today's video is about some of the results I'm going to see today. Basically, I didn't plan this video, it happened by accident from yesterday. We went out for a trip, did 210 miles yesterday, and of course, as always, I was measuring the efficiency and measuring the range and all those sort of things. And one of the things that puzzles me with the Kona electric is the GOM, the guessometer. I really want to know how it works, and I don't understand it. I haven't actually done enough driving and running it down to low percentages to understand exactly how it works. And yesterday we saw some, well, I wouldn't necessarily say unusual things, but the GOM didn't adjust how I'd like to. What I would expect from the GOM is when you drive assertively and the efficiency goes down, I'd expect the range to reduce. When you drive economically and the average consumption goes up, as in your miles per kilowatt hour increases, I would expect that the range would also go up, but it doesn't appear to. The range doesn't appear to change at all. Not from when you're 100% going down to 50% or even 40% battery. It doesn't seem to change at all. Or if it does, it's to very small degrees. So the method of calculation that it's using must include looking at the historical data of how you've driven in the past, not just how you're driving right now. What I'm basically doing today is the third stage of driving on a single charge. So I basically charged the car to 100%. We drove 105 miles down from Norfolk to Essex, and I achieved efficiency numbers of between 3.9 and then rising up to 4.3 when we arrived. And it was cold in the morning. I had the heater on a little bit. I was trying to be economical, so we didn't actually have the heater on a lot in the car. But you know, I achieved 4.3 miles per kilowatt hour. Well, that on its own means that the range, 4.3 times 64.2, the number of kilowatt hours in the Kona electric, should have equaled about 276 mile range. So given we set out with an indicated 286 mile range, and the range that was indicated when we arrived still indicated 286, it makes me wonder why it didn't reduce, because the efficiency I've just done for 110 miles should have indicated a lesser range. Anyway, on the return journey, Susan drove back, achieved much better miles per kilowatt hour. She achieved on average for the entire journey 4.6, which is a lot better than I achieved. I've yet to find out exactly how or why she actually does that, but anyway, we arrived back after having done 210 miles, and the efficiency was at 4.6, but the range left to go, 77, and it just dropped from 77 to 76 as we turned the car on and off a few times to take photos of the GOM and the dashboard. So if we set out with 286 and halfway it still showed 286, and when we arrived back it still showed 286 mile range, even though the average was now up to 4.6 miles per kilowatt hour, which times 64.2 should equal 295 mile range. So when I was less economical, it didn't reduce, and when Susan was more economical, it didn't increase either. Well, I say didn't change. Well, when we got down to 90 miles and Susan was driving, this is 90 miles range left to go, I did notice that the GOM dropped 5 miles quite suddenly, from like 90 down to 85, and we were on an incline at the time. So maybe at that number of miles left to go, at that percentage, perhaps it was starting to adjust more dynamically. And that's what I'm interested in. When does it start to adjust dynamically? So you can actually see from your current driving style how much range you've actually got left. That's what I'm trying to understand and learn. So from 210 miles with 77 left, it's still showing the old range, not the new indicated range. So anyway, we didn't charge up. We left the car with 29% battery and 76 miles range left to go. And Susan set off for a 44-mile journey the next day, the next morning, which was 2 degrees C outside. There was ice on the windscreen, so she definitely needed the heater on. She didn't adjust the temperature, so I know it was set to 19.5 degrees. And she left the fan on and the heater on for the entire journey of where she was going, which was turned out to be between 21 and 22 miles. Well, she arrived there with 51 miles range left. So having completed 22 miles, 26 miles, 25 to 26 miles had been knocked off the range. So at last we're starting to see a dynamic change, that it had adjusted more according to her efficiency driving there. And that pleased me, because I was expecting it at some point. It's got to drop, or it's got to start increasing, because if the average really was 4.6, then the car should think it's capable of doing 295 mile range. So the question was, going out in cold conditions with the heater on, what would the range be by the time she got home? Well, she astounded us, because on the way back she turned the heaters off and was really economical and managed 4.8 miles per kilowatt hour. Yes, it's probably slower driving. It was busy rush hour sort of traffic. There was some dual carriageway usage in that, so it's not all like 30 mile an hour driving. But anyway, she arrived back with 36 miles range left, which, considering she'd done 4.8 miles per kilowatt hour, you can start to see that, again, the GOM was adjusting upwards. So on the way out to her destination this morning, it had adjusted down. On the way back, with better efficiency, it had adjusted back up. Now that's what I wasn't seeing it do when we did the 105 miles to Essex and 105 miles back. So when your outstanding percentage and range on the car is much higher, it doesn't appear to be adjusting according to your driving style as much. Whereas when we're down to lower percentage rates, it definitely is adjusting. Anyway, so with 36 miles left on the car this morning, I haven't charged again. I've decided to get back in the car and go out for a drive. One, to make this video. Two, I'm probably going to pop into a charger and recharge. But I'm going to take the opportunity of driving economically and seeing what happens. So I have reset all the numbers, and I've done 3 miles so far and achieved 4.9 miles per kilowatt hour. The heater wasn't on, but I've just turned it on by accident, so the heater is now off. Of course it does that. If you change the fan speed, which I've just done, to demist the windscreen, so I wanted the fan on, but of course as soon as you touch the climate controls, it turns it on. It says the temperature set isn't what it is, so it puts the heater on, which I didn't ask for, so that's why I've just turned the heater off. Anyway, back to the numbers. So we've currently got 33 miles of range left, and I'm averaging 4.8 miles per kilowatt hour right now. So that's about right, isn't it? It's being accurate. So what I want to do is get onto another bit of road and put my foot down and turn the heater on, and see how fast the range reduces and see how dynamic it really is, because I want to understand it. I want to understand what's going to happen with this GOM. The thing that concerns me slightly is, if it's accurate, that's brilliant, but it only seems to be accurate at the bottom end of percentage range. So if that's the case, and you're planning where to do your charges, and you're doing a 200 or 300 mile trip, then you could be out. What I'm thinking is, if it hasn't adjusted the range in your first 150 mile range, first 150 miles of your trip, then you're going to be estimating where you're going to charge based on that information. But when you get to the lower levels, if it then starts changing, that change, in theory, especially like now, if you wake up the next day and it's freezing cold with ice and the conditions are completely different, then your actual range will be considerably different. So why am I saying all this? Well, for new people going into an EV, or new Kona owners, part of the issue is planning. I've covered this in another video. You do need to plan. It's something you don't really take into account in an ICE car, but you do have to, because how do you know how much range you really have left, and can you trust it? And unless you know the sort of efficiency you're getting, the sort of range the car's capable of, and the weather conditions and what to expect, then how are you going to plan for where to charge and how much comfort you're going to have on range left to go? Take, for example, my video I did a while ago on a 411 mile trip to Brighton. On that trip, it was something like 2 degrees outside, it was wet conditions on the road, it was very early in the morning, and I achieved 3.3 miles per kilowatt hour, which for me is pretty awful. That's the lowest I've actually achieved in the car. And that comparison of 3.3 miles per kilowatt hour with the heater on, with 3 people in the car, compared to yesterday's trip and this morning's trip that Susan managed, 4.6 and 4.8 miles per kilowatt hour, there's a huge difference. 3.3 to 4.8 is a huge difference in range total for the car. So unless you can anticipate what you're going to be getting in terms of efficiency, how can you plan for where and when you might charge and how much contingency you have left? Anyway, what are we doing now? I've accelerated onto dual carriageway. I will turn the camera around, I think we'll do that now. There we go, so that's where we are. We're on the new dual carriageway Northern Distributor Road going around the outside of Norwich. Now originally I would have planned to go through the centre of the city and take the slower, shorter journey because I didn't think I'd have enough range, but because we had 36 indicated, I thought I'd come the longer way and have some fun in the car and see what happens. So at the moment it's showing 4.4 miles per kilowatt hour. I've done 5.5 miles. Let's take it out of eco mode and put it in comfort mode so I can have a bit more acceleration. Okay, so we're down to 3.8 miles per kilowatt hour now, and the sun's just glinting on the screen. I can't see what the range is. Oh, there we go, 30. So it still says 30, now 29 left. So it's not dropping massively. Accelerating to just slightly more than I should do. Let's see if we can turn the heater on now, full blast as well. There we go. 3.4 miles per kilowatt hour, and I guess that's going to go up with a bit of regen braking now. Yeah. 3.9 miles per kilowatt hour with some braking. So just as I'm wiping off some efficiency, I'm just getting some more back. Anyway, here we go. I'm going to put it in sport mode because that didn't actually feel as quick off the line as I'd expect. So we're down to 10% battery now. Heater's on and we've got 25 mile of range left, and we're averaging 3.4 miles per kilowatt hour. So we set out with 36, we've driven 8, so that should be down to 28, and it's showing 25 still. So it doesn't look like it's adjusting instantaneously, not as much as you'd think. Do you know what? I don't know what's happening here, but the car doesn't quite feel as quick. That was foot flat to the floor. In sport mode it's showing 100% torque in use, but I don't think that acceleration was as much as it normally is. Okay, we're down to 9% battery now. 22 miles to go, and we've travelled 10. So we've only lost 4 miles so far, driving, I wouldn't say like a lunatic, but a lot quicker than I normally would. And we're down to 3.2 miles per kilowatt hour. Let's turn the temperature up on the heating as well. Trying to make it as bad as I can to see the difference in the GOM and how fast it reduces. Oh dear, someone's gone over the roundabout when they shouldn't have done. No, that's reduced power. That's sport mode, full foot down, and that is no way accelerating as fast as it used to. So there's no turtle appearing. Ah, we have an orange battery light. Oh, low EV battery warning, 8%. Oh, there you go. So we have a message on the screen, low EV battery warning, 8% with range of 19 miles left. So no turtle yet, but I can swear this is nowhere near as performant as it should be. And 7 degrees now, 7% now. Okay, so that's fair enough, isn't it? Driving quite spirited. I'm now down to 7% battery, and the warning light has come on. Now, I thought it only came on at 5, but there you go. So anyway, heater's now off, and I'm going to drive a lot better because I do want to get there. Okay, I've only got a couple of miles to go, so if this 19 miles is accurate that it says I've got left, I've got loads, but nobody likes getting a warning up, do they? Anyway, so my first observation of really playing with that low battery warning is I think that was limiting power from before the warning light came on. It didn't quite feel right to me. It did feel like it was limiting power, and I'm thankful that it did that. I'm not saying that's a problem, I'm saying that's good because it's anticipating that you're going to need your range. The fact it didn't tell me that it was limiting power, yeah, not sure about that. This is where I think that sometimes I'm a bit complacent about all this charging stuff. The Kona is making me very complacent that if the charger's not going to work when I get there, then it's not like I'm in trouble. It's inconvenient, and yeah, I have got enough miles according to this to actually get home, even with the low battery warning light on. I've only got 10 miles to go to get back again, so in theory I could now drive home and charge at home if the charger doesn't work. So it's not like it's squeaky bum time because I've still got contingency. It's only feeling apprehensive because you don't trust this guessometer. You don't trust how accurate it really is, and that's what I'm trying to do in this video and in the driving and monitoring of things yesterday. I'm trying to determine how the guessometer actually works, to have faith and trust in it. And what I'm learning is, yes, initially when you're setting off at 100%, you need to anticipate how much range you're going to have based on efficiency. There really is a lot to take in and a lot to understand with electric cars. I almost think that if you're the sort of person that just gets in a car and drive it and don't worry about it, all of this will just go straight over your head. But if you're more of a data person, an analytical person, a logical person, an OCD person, which I think a lot of that applies to me, you'll be thinking about this stuff all the time and wanting to make sense of it. And with an electric car, that can be frustrating to some degrees because you're concentrating on that more than what perhaps you should be doing, enjoying your day out, for example. But if you just drive a car from A to B and you're not fussed about it, then I must admit, you know, the range indicator does seem adequate to give you a good hint as to what's actually going on. Planning for charging, well, yeah, that's the difference, isn't it? I wonder how big a difference the guessometer will be if, for example, say yesterday we'd have driven not at 4.3 miles per kilowatt hour, but only driven at, say, 3.9 or 4 miles per kilowatt hour. Would it have reduced the range at all, or does it keep within a margin of only 5-10 miles and therefore a safety level? My gut feeling so far is, yeah, you can actually trust what's on that range, but you just need to keep an eye on it. You mustn't judge it within the last single 1, 2, 3 miles, because as I'm seeing here, and from our testing yesterday, it's very easy for the car to drop 5 miles when you're not expecting it. And if you're planning on a charge and only having a couple of miles left of range, then that could scupper your plans, couldn't it? It could ruin your plans by not having sufficient range to get to the charge you had in mind. In some places, I guess that doesn't matter because you just turn around and you go to a charger that is working if you've got a problem with that. So you've got choices of chargers. But, you know, there are places around the country, whether it be Wales or whether it be Norfolk or Lincolnshire, there are little holes of 10, 20, 30 miles and there are no chargers anywhere. So that's not ideal. So you do need to plan your trips accordingly. Okay, we're still showing 18 miles range. The miles per kilowatt hour has gone up, as you might expect, because I'm creeping around, to 3.7. I'm curious as to whether the range is actually going to go up at all rather than just down. Will this be my first time of arriving at a charger to find it's actually busy and I've got to sit and wait for it as well, while I'm with only 18 miles left to go? I haven't ever had that before. I've gone to a charger all the time and it's been free, or you know, literally as I've pulled in, the person's been saying, "Oh yeah, I'm now going." So I've never actually had to queue and never actually had to wait, which I think is brilliant. I suppose it's indicative of the number of electric cars around Norfolk and where I've been trying to charge. But yeah, these are free chargers that I'm heading for, so they're popular. When they are paid for, they obviously won't be as popular, so they'll be more free and available, which is brilliant, because it gives me a huge sense of confidence now that chargers are paid for, there'll be more charger availability. The risk of actually it not working or somebody being there already and you've got to queue and wait for it, the risk of that happening to you is a lot less. And I like that. So if I'm on a long trip, well, of course, I'm then happy to pay for my charge. I'm only literally coming to this charger today rather than charging at home because it's free. And it also gives me the opportunity to go out and do that test. So the combination of the two things means that I can benefit from it while doing this video and doing this test. Another piece of information to report. The range on the battery information screen, so on the main battery information screen on the car, this one, let's see if we can get the range there, that's been showing on DC charge and AC charge, when you charge up to 100%, it's been showing 286 from yesterday when we first set off, all the way until this morning it was still showing 286. But lo and behold, now it's recalculated and I haven't plugged in and charged. So that range number that's on that screen clearly does adjust over time, whether you've charged or not. And I was believing that it would only change the next time you charged. But no, it's showing 297 now, not 286 that it has been. And there's no one on the charger. There's no one here again. Brilliant news. So partly spirited driving, partly economical driving. I managed 3.9 miles per kilowatt hour with 18 miles left of range to go. It doesn't seem to have dropped any more. It looks like basically I'm catching some mileage back up again, so it's just not reducing rather than it keeping going down. It knows that my efficiency is going up, so it's sticking at 18 miles for a while longer than it normally would. No bars left, just the two red ones left. Battery indicator light on. What else does it show? It's still showing 7% over here. And as I said, if I charge to 100%, 297 miles. And it shows red, but no turtle. Just that battery indicator warning light down the bottom. So as the cars started to charge, it started off at something like 19 kilowatts and it's increased to 37 within just a few seconds. So we're charging nicely now. I wouldn't mind betting that it's going to increase up to 40 something kilowatts as well. And there we go, up to 39 kilowatts now. And there's that pump noise again. Let's just be quiet and see if you can hear that. Just a very faint fan noise in the background. That's all you can hear. So I think I've said this before when I've been charging and mentioning this noise, the pump or fan noise that you can hear in the background. I can hear it. I can't from the outside. From outside the car there is nothing. The charger itself isn't making any noise. The car from the bonnet, from the wheel arches, nothing whatsoever. But inside the car, definitely a noise, definitely a humming noise of some description. Let's turn the ignition off. No, that's still there. Interestingly, I'll leave the ignition on, because if I leave the ignition on, then when the charger's finished, I should be able to turn the car physically on and see how much battery care has been used. And if battery care is indicated on the screen, then I'll know that some of the cooling or heating facilities in the car will have been used. Now, it cannot be heating, because we know that in bad winter conditions, from things I've said before to do with cold gate, etc., that the Kona does not heat the battery unless it's -10 or below. So it's not a heating issue, so this must be circulating the coolant for cooling. Anyway, this is more like normal, isn't it? This is how you're supposed to do charging and drive an EV, supposedly. You're supposed to drive it to much lower percentages and then charge up, because then you get the better speeds. All my problems in the past have been because I've been driving the car from, say, 80% down to 50% and then wanting to charge up. And of course, I don't get the right speed from charging up from 50% when it's cold weather. When it's warmer, you've already been for a trip. If we've now done 55 miles in this car this morning and the sun's out and it's 8 degrees, that's warmed it up sufficiently, and the thermal pump I can hear is pumping the coolant around, cooling the battery, keeping it at the right temperature. Okay, what I think I'll do next, I think I'll switch over and do a live stream and answer any questions and have a chat to a few people if I can, because I'm going to be sat here for an hour, so I might as well. So I'll end this video now. Thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing. I hope you learned something from the video today. I hope I haven't confused you completely. The point of what I was trying to get across was I personally didn't understand how the guessometer worked and understand how to interpret the information that it's given me and how accurate it is. So far, from all of my tests and these few specific ones, what I've learned is initially on a drive from full 100%, it doesn't vary very much in range. It doesn't really adjust, not unless your driving and conditions are much more dramatic to change the past history of range and how it calculated it to what it is today. For example, if you've been getting 5.5 miles per kilowatt hour and suddenly you go out and it's -3 outside and you have the heater on full and you're only getting 3 miles per kilowatt hour, then there's a pretty big difference between that, and I would expect the guessometer to change and adjust. Haven't been able to do that test today, but that's what I would expect. What I'm seeing is normally if it's within a close range of 10-20 miles difference perhaps, it's not adjusting very much, not until you get right down to the lower levels. And as we saw today with this test, yeah, setting off at 36 miles, it stayed consistent, the GOM, with my miles per kilowatt hour and that estimation. It was sticking accurately to it. But as soon as I turned the heater on, put my foot down a lot and got a lot less efficiency, it did start to reduce, and it reduced quite quickly. Could I rely on those numbers? Well, again, this is it. No, when it was telling me 25 miles, I don't think I could have relied on that 25 miles carrying on at that same rate of driving that I was doing at that instance. It was going to reduce some more. So with an electric car, with the Kona, with how these guessometers are calculated, just because you see range on the screen at that instantaneous moment, you're not to presume that that's the range you've got left. If you're keeping at a consistent miles per kilowatt hour and driving in the same conditions that you have been previously, then you should take that as accurate, because it appears to be. So it is down to understanding your past driving, the efficiency you're getting, and what it's telling you, and interpreting and calculating all that information yourself. And yeah, that for people that aren't interested in all those numbers, I guess all that's a bit of a pain, and all you want to do is just rely on what the car's telling you. But I guess if that's you, then you're probably driving consistently anyway. So yeah, the guessometer's quite accurate in the Kona. I'm quite happy with that, and it does adjust, but it adjusts and changes much more at lower percentage levels. And yet today, 7-8%, yeah, we got a battery warning, and I am convinced that without seeing a turtle sign on the screen, power was reduced. There is no way that that was full power that I was getting in sport mode. So yeah, interesting stuff, and I'm glad the car works how it does. It is looking after me, isn't it? Anyway, we're now charging at 44-45 kilowatts. Thanks for watching, everyone. Thanks for subscribing. Until the next video, take care and see you again soon. Bye-bye.